Arizona.
I'm listening. I'm just eating my lunch.
What do you mean you're listening, don't want to join the conversation, Tom?
Welcome, everyone. Welcome, everyone in the room.
Our conversation is better than this.
I am Michael Brockton. I'm pleased to be here serving as the president of one of the largest of the 15,000 Kiwanis clubs in the world. We are one of the largest. I want you to know that the significance of today's meeting extends well beyond whatever these items are on our full agenda. Really, today's meeting, like every one of our meetings, is about continuing to act for civic good for our community. So having said that, we've got introspection. JC is on his way up, and Harry is on his way up. Oh, excuse me, Nancy. Nancy.
JC. Yes, sir. Good afternoon to all of you today. Introspection. Too stressed to be blessed. Avoid distress. Now, you all knew in July that winter would be here in December. Even the squirrels in my backyard prepare all summer long for winter because they know things are going to get different. You may lose your power. You may even run out of bread. Anybody ever been to the Kroger store when there's a big snow on the way? You ever take a minute and look at the stress in their face? Avoid the stress and prepare. That's all I'm saying today. I hope this will touch somebody. Maybe I won't see any Kiwanis at the Kroger store this year. A few years ago when I lived in North Lakes, a neighbor came over to my house with a big snow. I said, I need to borrow your snow shovel. I need to go to work and I got to shovel my car. I wanted to say, he said Lowe's is out of shovels. I wanted to say Lowe's had shovels in September. But I didn't say that. All I'm saying is, this winter time, power could go out. You may need a flashlight. Don't come over to borrow my light. I'm gonna have mine. So I'm saying today, prepare. Winter time is here. Bless you.
And all remain standing for a pledge of allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty. Thank you.
Please be seated. Thank you, JC, and thank you, Nancy. I want you to know that years ago, my wife gave me a big, overstuffed leather recliner. It quickly became my favorite chair. You get the picture. We kept it in the living room, eventually moved it into my home office. It didn't matter to me that the leather was showing obvious signs of wear. Didn't matter that the mechanism was a bit wonky. It was so very comfortable. I would sit in that chair. I would read, I would watch TV. And yes, I might have taken a nap or two in that big, overstuffed, worn out recliner. And when I was recovering from surgery, I spent a few nights in that recliner. Those stairs were out of reach for me. Well, recently, as part of our move, we donated that chair. You see, our move was a downsize. We simply do not have room for that big, overstuffed recliner anymore. It was a lifestyle decision. A lifestyle decision setting us up for the next phase, which we are really looking forward to. more travel, fewer duties. Exciting time, but here's the thing. Not have room for that old chair. In fact, if we had kept it, it would gotten in the way of our goals. Would have gotten in the way of the future we wanted for ourselves. You know, sometimes leaving something behind is what it takes to move forward. Now, you all know where this is going, don't you? So I wonder about our Kiwanis Club in a similar way. I wonder if the path to our club's future can be enhanced by leaving a few old things behind that might be getting in the way. I'm not sure of that. I am sure we're going to act on our theme, which is outreach. Thank you very much. All right, for you guests and visitors, pay attention. There's no clearer demonstration than what I'm about to do to leave you with the impression of just how busy and civically engaged this club is. I'm going to quickly go through the announcements. If I miss one, just pass a note up. I'll get to it later in the meeting. The board met this past Monday. Meet once every month. The level of quality of the board members this year is outstanding. You can read a summary of what they did in this week's newsletter. Please do that. The Nature Park met this week. Another outstanding group of people. You guests need to know that we, the Kiwanis Club of Roanoke, are building a huge nature park in the Melrose neighborhood. It's our signature project. Every dollar we fundraise gets used for causes like that. KPAD is one of the ways we raise dollars. KPAD is our annual fundraiser, Kiwanis Pancake and Auction Day. The operations group for KPAD meets this Friday. See Jean, she'll fill you in. Also meeting on Friday, Larry the Log Perch. That's a book that this club has produced and will soon launch. Those of you involved, see Sherry Hartman. And speaking of Sherry Hartman, she's asked me to demonstrate what to do with this water jug or milk jug. Or if it's from Henry County, it could have been some other liquid. I'm not sure. She's asked me to demonstrate. She's got a pile of these right there. She's got instructions. Your job is to pick up an instruction and a jug. Go make some plants that will eventually go in that nature park. Cleanup, Monday, MLK Day. What better way to spend time on MLK Day than cleaning up Hortons Branch and the nature park area? Join Sherry, join the Environment Committee, join many of us for a couple hours Monday morning, then hang around. Dave Perry is running an Environment Committee meeting Monday afternoon. Dave, being the overachiever he is holding the first in-person Environment Committee meeting we have had in years. Thank you, Dave, for doing that. Membership. Harry's running an in-person membership committee meeting. Panera Bread, it's listed on your agenda. Also listed on your agenda is the opportunity to take money out of your pockets and give it to our foundation. Our foundation is running its annual appeal campaign. We have a well-endowed foundation, which is partially responsible for some of the funds we get in this club each year that we then turn into community good. So respond to the foundation letter that you've received, respond to the newsletter article about the foundation, help that organization grow. Now, some of you are readers. I have this on good authority. Some of you actually know how to read. Some of you have joined our brand new book club. Our own David Hartman is chairing that book club. It's the first time, at least I'm aware of, that we've had a book club. They are meeting in person the end of the month, South County Library. Join that. the same day that the book club meets, the same evening, there's a webinar being held. Sherry Hartman, David Hartman are active at the district level with DEIBA. You need to show up at the webinar to learn more about that. It's important for the future of not just our club, but I think society at large. And the last bullet I have to mention is on behalf of Joyce Montgomery. She loves every one of you, she told me. She wants one of you to step forward to volunteer to organize the speaker programs for August. If you're up to your game, you'll organize programs as good as Bill Bestfitch has done, and you'll draw in speakers as good as today's speaker. See Joyce about August. I think that's the end of the announcements, John. Oh, no, late breaking.
I left off the guest introductions.
Late breaking. You know, I mentioned guests. I thank you for showing up. Now we're going to introduce you. Fred Jeter is going to do that.
Good afternoon, everyone. We have a lot of guests today. First off, I want to welcome the folks from the Action Club. So there's 5 people that we have today. If you could just guess, if you could stand up when I say your name and along with your sponsor. So first off, Robin and John Fouts. John Worley, you can stand up and everybody knows who you are. JJ Harper and Robbie Hairston. And their sponsors are Mike Loveman, Randy Myers, and Ken Briggs. So welcome, everyone. And then we have Pat Joyner with MKB Realtors. Pat joins us today and is sponsored by, her host is Lori Baker Lloyd. And then Joe Cobb, welcome back, Joe. Gabe Anderson with Carillion, sponsored by Sherry and Dave Hartman. April Corbett and Lindsay Tolar, if you could stand, and sponsored by Gene Bellendorf. And April and Lindsay are with the Virginia Children's Theater. And then we have Maureen Best from LEAP and Kelly Key, both from LEAP. And they're sponsored by Reef Kessler. And Eric McNair, if you could stand, with Beacon Partnerships. Eric sponsored by Alex Barge. Robert Anderson, sports writer, is sponsored by Harry Zulauf. And then Danny Poe and Carly Foster from Roanoke County. And they're both sponsored by Greg Lionberger. And I think that's all we have today. So
Lots of applause.
lots of guests today. So welcome.
Well done. Well done. Nice to see some new faces. So you guessed, I'm directly addressing you now. Because what you're about to witness is an example of what we spend all year doing successfully, which is raising money. And then we spend this part of the year giving it away. Bob Haberman, you come up here and take care of that.
And excuse me, and thank you, President Mike. We have 2 grants to give out today. Our first one will go to Virginia Children's Theater. And Gene Ballendorf, would you please come up and tell us a little bit about Virginia Children's Theater? And then April and Lindsay, would you please come up and tell us a little bit about what you're going to be doing, with the money? Thank you.
Why do I always have to go after Bob and pull the microphone all the way down 3 feet? Thanks, everyone. As you all know, Virginia Children's Theater is near and dear to my heart, and this particular grant is for a teen educational program. And I'm going to actually let April take time to speak on it, but I just wanted to point out that Pat Joyner is a former board member of Virginia Children's Theater. She goes way back, even before my time. So Kismet being what it is really cool to have her here today. And now I'm going to introduce April.
Hello.
Thank you all, and thank you to the Kiwanis Club for giving Virginia Children's Theater this awesome grant. This grant was written to support our youth programming and specifically our teen issue play. We have been changing the format of how we're structuring VCT to more represent a diverse and welcoming environment where everyone is welcome.
Your talk will be fine.
As we do that, this grant money will go to support a program that we will implement this summer in coordination with area libraries, where we do a workshop with teens that will be completely free and available to them to find a way to open a dialogue and communication to where they all feel represented in a format of theater that maybe they're not as familiar with. And I think it'll be really, really great. And that would not happen without the Kiwanis Club. So thank you all so much.
John Bradshaw, you need to mute your phone.
Okay. Thank you.
Up goes the microphone. And our second one today is LEAP. And Maureen and Kelly, would you please come forward and tell us a little bit about LEAP? And I mean, you'll tell us about the grant, and Reef, if you'll tell us a little bit about LEAP. Thank you.
Just to put it down about 2 inches. Good afternoon, everyone. I'm here today, glad to be the host of Maureen Best and Kelly Key from LEAP. Some of you might remember that Maureen was with us back in the summer and told us about LEAP organization, the Local Environmental Agricultural Project, founded here in Roanoke not too many years ago, who have as their goal increasing access to fresh and locally grown food for underserved individuals and communities in the valley. They do this through a variety of methods, including utilizing educational resources and distribution methodology to make things more comfortable for both food producers and food consumers. They do good work, and I think it's work that aligns with the general goal of our Kiwanis Club. Actually, Maureen spoke back in the summer. Today, Kelly's going to speak. She's the program director at LEAP.
Hello, thank you for having us. Thank you for this grant money. I just wanted to say that this grant money is really going to help us achieve our goal of responding to the community needs, which is something we really pride ourselves on. As we've grown throughout the past 14 years, everything, all of our programs, all of the different communities we've served, it's been in response to what we hear from them. And this money is directly going to help folks with Medicaid or WIC and some seniors be able to make the choice to choose local food and make it affordable within or low income. We've changed a lot over the years, and we're really excited that in the last year we've made our home, our first real home in the West End neighborhood, and we put a lot of time and energy into that part of the city. And so we're going to be able to continue focusing on serving the families in that neighborhood and with the farmers market that we have there, and with a new retail store that we're going to be opening this spring. And in all of those spaces, we provide those programs that make food more affordable. So thank you so much.
Everybody's fine.
how nice it is to be able to support both of those organizations. Thanks to you. So this outreach thing, you know, last week I stood up here and I awarded, for only the third time in recorded history, another outreach award. I awarded it to, what's that guy's name? Bart Wilner, who's going to stand up now. Who's going to stand up now? Because just the past few months, Bart has recruited 2 new members. So Eric Sitchow is going to stand up now. And Fred Jeter is going to stand up now. This is what new members look like. Thank you. Please sit down. This is what outreach looks like. And if you're not getting the idea, I'm going to give another outreach award out today. This is only 4th time in recorded history. You guests need to know. You need to know that we have such a good story to tell that our campaign this year is to reach out to you and others in the community to make you aware of our story. And perhaps 1 or 2 of you will decide to come back. So this outreach award today, it goes to a Kiwanian who's somehow managed to take a good thing and make it even better. He's taken the good thing called membership committee, and he's raised that to a new level, and he's already accomplishing things behind the scenes that are going to pay off. Harry Zuloff, come on up here, please. Don Witt's coming up to take a series of photographs now. First is the coveted outreach ribbon. Harry, were you this happy at high school graduation? And then the pin. The pin can be worn on the ribbon, and should be, but it also can be worn on your lapel or on your tie, depending on the occasion. Take the pin. Get us both. This is memorable.
A little too serious.
So that's what outreach looks like. And I'm eternally grateful, and I know you are too. Because these individuals are earning this award, are setting us up for an even bigger and brighter future. Now, do we have any braggarts in the audience? Because if we do, now's the time to come up front. Brag bucks are something we do, part in jest, but part seriously, where anyone with $2 or more in their pocket can up front for 30 seconds and brag on a subject of their choosing. Please.
Good afternoon. My name is Ken Briggs. I want to brag on Kiwanians Preston Tyler and Kathy Cohen. Preston is pastor at Hill Street Baptist Church. Kathy leads the congregation at Temple Emmanuel. And over the last few years, on Martin Luther King's birthday weekend, they have brought the community together for a service to remember Dr. King and what he has taught us. And they're going to do it again this Sunday afternoon at 4 p.m. at Hill Street Baptist Church. You will be excited about the experience. Details are in the newsletter. Hope to see you there. Thank you.
I'm Captain Matt Trantham with the Salvation Army. I have a brag and a plea. Harry, you can cover your ears if you want, but I'm going to brag that Michigan won the national championship. It took a while. And then I have a plea. I just came from the house of an 84-year-old retired lady who I'm trying to help potentially transition out of her home into assisted living or something like that. So if after the meeting anyone can be a referral for me or help me know that through that. I've only been here 6 months. I don't know the first place or step. That would be grateful. So after the meeting, just come see me. That'd be great. Thank you.
Okay, guys, I'm gonna speed read because I got 30 seconds. I understand when I was not here last week that you all had kudos to the West End Christmas party, but being the chairman of that committee, I really want to give my heartfelt thanks to all the people, which is basically everybody in here, who helped with that process. But real quickly, people who helped with our shopping: John Montgomery, Joyce Montgomery, Don Wilson, Reeve Kessler, Bruce Swanson, Donna Lynch brought a friend with her, Eric Danielson, Clark and Rebecca Goodman, Sherry Dillon brought her grandson, Micah Brockta, Rhonda Purdue, Joe Limmer, Mike Bell, and David Farnham. So thank you for shopping, for wrapping. Oh, and the Cave Spring Key Club was there also for our shopping. For wrapping, which if we didn't have key clubbers, we'd be there all night. So very grateful for our Patrick Henry key clubbers. We have 15 of them. Reef and Susan Kessler, Fred Jeter, Bruce Swanson, Rhonda Purdue, Jean Bollendorf, John Montgomery, Joyce Montgomery, and Clark Goodman. We had our financial sponsors that we could not buy the gifts that we do for the kids without them. So a quick shout out to Steve Bowery, Will Banks Smith and Thomas, Scott Bergland, Don Wilson, the Chitwoods, and a huge shout out to the Lionburgers. Thank you all for, I can't say it, I'll get upset, but you know, appreciate it because we couldn't do it without you. So as the chief elf for the West End Christmas Center, I want to thank all the individuals who gave money for that as well, because of your generosity, we were able to buy every child at least $80 worth of presents, and we had 60 children. Thank you, thank you, thank you, and we'll do it again next year.
I'm John Montgomery and wanted to particularly recognize Robert Anderson. Robert, would you stand, please? He's a modest fellow, but I wouldn't want this opportunity to pass. I've been around sports writing a long time. I started in high school, which was several years ago. And I want you to know that Robert Anderson, who's recently retired. When did you actually retire from the Roanoke Times? When did you retire? A couple of years ago now, but he was with the Roanoke Times over 20 years. And in the examples set by Bob McClellan and Bob Teitelbaum and other people who covered high school sports, there's a few others that had, Dan Uthman were there in between. Robert pretty much, it's sort of like being Mickey Mantle after following Babe Ruth and Lou Gehrig. Sports analogy, Robert did one heck of a great job. I'm honored to be his friend. I'm glad you're here today. In his retirement role, he's interested in helping people in need. And he already asked me, how do you apply for a grant? So you see he's on top of things. Glad to know you, Robert. Glad to have you here. Thank you, Robert. Glad to have you here.
Thanks to all the braggarts in the room. It's delightful to hear what you care about. So, Bill Bestfitch is going to do something he's good at. He's going to get up in front of a microphone and say something. Bill, over to you.
Thank you, President Mike. I might just point out that it helps to have a club member as a sponsor for a grant application. Just saying. Our speaker today, Chief Scott C. Booth, joined the Richmond, Virginia Police Department in 1996 and served for nearly 20 years, starting out as a patrol officer He left as the operations major and major in charge of the Office of Professional Responsibility and Internal Affairs. He focused on the reduction of violent crime, community engagement, and working proactively with neighborhoods to effectively recognize and respond to problems. Then he went to the Metropolitan Washington Airports Authority in DC, where he ended up as chief of police. He went to Charlotte, North Carolina, as the U.S. Department of Homeland Security Deputy Federal Security Director for the Charlotte, North Carolina region, until he became chief of police in Danville in 2018. While he was there, Danville reduced overall violent crime by 52%, and the agency became a recognized leader for its focused policing efforts and community engagement model. Last October, Chief Booth became chief of police in Roanoke. He has received numerous awards throughout his career in law enforcement and attended several professional training courses. He has a bachelor's degree from the University of Richmond, a master's in criminal justice from VCU, go Rams, and a doctorate in criminal justice from Pennsylvania Western University. And he's a proud veteran of the U.S. Army, having earned the Combat Infantryman's Badge, easy for me to say, in Operation Desert Storm. Go Army, beat Navy.
Oh, man.
Thanks, Mike. Hey, good afternoon. It's great to be here today. So I'm learning a lot about your club already. One thing that I do know, you cannot cross either your president, Mike, or Bill, because they remind me of a couple of drill sergeants I had when I was in the Army. These are tough guys. No, but I joke, and it's really great to be here today. So what I want to do, just going to talk a little bit more about myself and kind of what brought me here, and then I'm going to give you a little bit of insight into my mind as I look at changing a police organization to make it serve the community. All right. So this is just an insight into what I feel, what I've seen works in policing, and what we're going to do right here in this great community, the city of Roanoke. So I was born right here in Roanoke, actually, when my dad went to Virginia Tech. My mom worked in a downtown bank. So I claim native status, all right, not from Danville, born in Roanoke. Then I grew up in the northern neck of Virginia, Reedville, if you know where that is, on the Chesapeake Bay, and then ran out of there at 18 and went to the Army. After I got out of the Army, I went to Richmond, and in Richmond, starting as a new police officer in the Highland Park area of Richmond, North Richmond, which at the time, that city of 200,000 people was experiencing extremely high levels of violent crime. That year that I started, there was about 140 lives lost, 140 homicides, mostly due to gun violence. And if you remember, Richmond in the 90s had the distinct, moniker of being the murder capital of the United States. So I wanted to go to a community right out of the Army, very much an idealist, and I remain an idealist today, where I could have an impact. So starting there in the 90s, working in some neighborhoods that were experiencing some challenges, really kind of shaped how I look at the potential impact that a police department can have in a community that needs us. So there, I went up through the ranks, served in pretty much every area of the department, and then left there as the major of internal affairs and served as the operations major. So I ran the patrol division for the city of Richmond. Took my first chief's job up in Northern Virginia in the DC area, where I led 225 officers that kept the Dulles International Airport, Ronald Reagan Airport, and the Dulles Toll Road safe, and absolutely hated that because I didn't really have a community to protect. And we had 47 million passengers that came through those airports every year, but I really missed that community impact that you can see here in Taste. Went to work for DHS for a while, and while I was in DHS down in Charlotte, North Carolina, had a pretty good job. Charlotte's a great city, and I was once again miserable. And I was like, you know, I've got to go. So there's a theme here, right? Unless I'm connected to a city, I'm really not happy, unless I feel that impact. So I'm sitting down there and I read about a place that I didn't know about. A lot of people say, oh, you're from Danville. I'm not from Danville. But what I read about Danville, Virginia, if you remember, in 2018, they were coming off 3 years of very high levels of gun violence, homicide. A lot of young people were losing their lives in that community. And I read about that, and I read that they were looking for a police chief. And there was also something else that really stuck out. And not to throw anybody under the bus, but he's not in this room. But the former police chief would stand in front of the community and city council, and he would say, you know, Danville's special, and community policing doesn't work here. The community doesn't trust us, and our officers are not accepted in the community, so we don't even try that here. And you know, that was such a shock to my conscience from being in Richmond and going up through the ranks there and seeing and having mentors, chief mentors, working for 6 different chiefs, that the only thing they believed in was bringing the community and the police together to problem solve. So that was just, I was like, no. We're gonna go. I'm gonna go there and I'm gonna show them that there's a better way to do some things. So we're gonna build something that really works. And I was there for about 5.5 years, and we really built a great police department that was connected to the community and was much more diverse when I walked out the door than when I started. Our crime level, specifically our violent crime, was the lowest it had been in 35 years when I walked out the door. And I felt really good about the work I had done there. And then once again, I'm sitting there and I'm reading about Roanoke and some of our challenges here. And I felt drawn to the community. It's not just because I was born here, but it's just a great city. It's a great community. And you know, 2023 and 2022 have been challenging for us. And I feel that this community and this police department, with the right leadership and the right folks working together, can really have an impact. Okay, so that's kind of why I'm here as your chief. And I want to give you just a little bit of insight into how my mind works as we move the Roanoke Police Department forward into 2024. I've been here for about 60 days now, and then I'm going to open it up to questions. And I know I can't go over because either Bill or Mike have already said they're going to shut me down. So I'm going to go through this. So kind of how my framework looks is I call it Impact Roanoke, implementing more police action and community trust. And it seems like the blue is a little washed out there, so forgive me for that. But Impact stands for implementing more police action and community trust. And the goals for us as we move forward as a community with the Roanoke Police Department is, my plan is to make us the premier law enforcement agency in the nation, a true model of community policing. All voices are heard and respected, and policing becomes a collaborative problem-solving approach involving all community stakeholders. We're going to reduce crime and the fear of crime in all of Roanoke's neighborhoods and achieve at least a 10% reduction citywide in violent property and major crimes each year. We're going to do that using a focused approach to crime reduction, one that focuses specifically on violent offenders and does not over-police our underserved communities. We're going to hire, train, and retain officers that are a part of this community and want to impact our community. And we're going to practice active community building. We're going to mobilize community voices in crime reduction, problem solving, and the hiring, training of police officers. So in my mind, and what I've experienced in policing and how I lead a police agency, is we have to embrace community in everything we do. Policing has become much more than folks that just come into your neighborhood and pull you over if you're speeding. It's got to be more than that. The only way we can reduce crime and bring communities together is through a combination of focus, balance, and fairness. So we have to focus, we have to use evidence-based approaches that focuses specifically on violent offenders. What you'll find in a community, and I don't care if it's Richmond, if it's Danville, if it's Roanoke, or if it's Washington, D.C., is that there is a very small number of violent offenders that commit violent acts in our community. Do you hear me with that? Research shows, not only research, almost 30 years in this business, we have a very small number of folks that intend to harm our community. All right, if we stay focused on them, and if we put them on our radar, that's how we reduce crime. Don't have enough time to really go into some of the strategies because limited time, but that's what works. And we also have to focus on the places that produce an inordinate number of criminal acts, right? We have incident producers. Not all neighborhoods certainly are bad, but we have incident producers. We have problem locations, problem houses, problem clubs that cause us problems in communities. We have to focus on that. And we can do that without over-policing communities. So when I say over-policing, when I was coming up in Richmond, and Richmond's a violent city, Richmond has a lot of gun violence, and still to this day. It went down in the mid-2000s, and it stayed pretty stable for about 10 years, and then it kind of skyrocketed back. But what would happen if there was a shooting in a community is we would just throw the kitchen sink at it, and we would throw every police officer out there, the mounted unit, the motorcycle unit, officers on bikes, walking. There is a piece to that. But I would offer that when officers are out there pulling over everybody's brother, sister, grandmother, and what have you, there's also a level of trauma that is caused by the police department. So we have to be very focused on our approaches specifically for reducing gun violence. Balance is also a big part of that. All right, and I won't stay too much on this, but balance, we have to not just have negative sanctions such as arrest. We also, as a department, as a community, have to build programming that will work for those that are in harm's way, and even those folks that maybe are on the cusp of committing criminal acts. How do we offer them services to get them out of the life, right? Do we need to have workforce development programs? We have to have things, and many of you I know are involved in that, things that are going to lift people up. And fairness, and this is extremely important in policing. Policing looks much different now than it did when I started. One thing I always believed in is treating people with dignity and respect. And that's what we will continue to do. And I think we have a great police department, let me say that. But treating people with dignity and respect will be our watchword. Procedural justice will be our watchword. And we will insert that in everything that we do. And part of that is holding officers accountable. All right, we won't just sweep something under the rug. And like I said, we have a great police department. But if an officer does something or harms someone in our community or violates rights, you have my pledge that I will hold them. We will hold them accountable. We are part of the diverse community that we serve. Building trust and legitimacy. In policing, there is nothing I would offer that's more important than building trust. If a neighborhood, if a community, if a city does not trust their police department, you don't have much. That's why in 2018, when I was reading about the Danville Police Department and their inability to get started with community policing and what that police chief said, it was just an anathema to me, because if you don't have trust, you cannot solve the violent acts or criminal acts that occur in the community. You know, CSI and forensics and all that is important. Don't get me wrong. But when an incident occurs, if there's a shooting or burglary in your neighborhood, most of those crimes are solved by people talking to the police. You know that, right? So I'm sure there's some CSI fans out here. That's good television. I got that. I know there's some audience. But you've got to talk to the police. People have to trust you. And all too often, if you don't trust the police, we're not going to get the information that we want. So when I'm talking to officers and communities, it just makes good sense. Trust and legitimacy have to be in the forefront. And part of that is we have to explain what we're doing. When I started in policing, we didn't tell communities why we were there. We didn't even talk to each other until we tell us what we were doing. We just didn't communicate. So I believe in over-communicating to our community, over-communicating to the department, explaining the why in everything we do. All right, you've seen enough procedurals, enough movies, enough TV. We're not doing top secret work in policing for the most part. We can be open and transparent in what we're doing. We also have to embrace community policing as a practice, not just a unit. I've seen a lot of departments, and we did this in Danville. It was already in existence when I walked in the door. They did have community policing, but what their community policing was a unit of officers that just went out and did traffic stops and enforced the law and police the neighborhood, and they did special events. but it wasn't working on building trust. So they had mislabeled a unit and called it community policing when it was really not doing anything positive in the community. Community policing is about working with our community, our neighborhoods, and all of our partners to make things better. We have to ensure fair and impartial policing of all residents of our city. Once again, we have to be transparent and accountable in everything that we do. We have to educate our community, involve them in the problem-solving process. One of the ways that we're doing that, and I have one of these tonight at Goodwill HQ in Northwest, is community forums. And some of you I've seen in community forums here. I think we've done about 6 since I've been chief in the last 60 days. So we really doubled down on that. But this is where we just bring the community in and we feed them, and then we have conversations and we answer questions. And most of the questions are about what's going on in their neighborhood, what's going on in their community. And we have to answer and be accountable for that. And they have to feel connected to their police department. So I think that's a big help. We hold ourselves and the community accountable in everything that we do. And this is just about policy and oversight. And I won't bore you with everything on here, but some of the things that we're going to do and have worked, have a chief's advisory committee made up of folks from all over the community that can come in and sit down with me and discuss what's going on in the community, in the police department, and how our policies look. Policies are very important in policing, whether it's use of force, our pursuits, body-worn cameras, discipline. We have to have a level of community involvement and input. Bringing the community in and placing them on things like our disciplinary review board, our use of force review boards, our hiring panels. That is very important to me. The community should have a say in what police officers we hire, on evaluating us when we've used force in the community. The old style of policing is we stiff-armed everybody. We didn't allow the community to have a voice in that. We work for you. All right, I might not be elected, but I'm appointed. And between the city manager and city council, they work for the community, hence we work for the community. So there has to be a level of connectivity there. And we have to work with our community to improve minority hiring and recruitment to ensure our department's diversity aligns with the citizens we serve. The Roanoke Police Department, when we look at our city, it should be reflective of the community we serve. Our community, just using some basic demographic information, is almost 30% African American, but yet I only have about 9% that are African American officers. That's abysmal. We should be reflective. In Danville, we were 50% African American. And we worked from day one, I worked to improve that. It was about 12% when I got there. When I left, it was about 27%. It's not perfect, but it was a whole lot better than day one. And I want folks that are from the community that understand the plight of our community, not just the African American community, but our Hispanic community, our LGBTQIA, all of the folks that make up the city of Roanoke need to be reflected in its ranks. That's what people want. They don't want everybody that looks like me. We want to hire the best, but I want us to be reflective of the community that we serve. Technology and social media. We're a focused, transparent organization that effectively uses data and communicates with our community to solve problems. One of the things that we're working on building right now, using some state grant money that actually was awarded right before I got here, we're doing the same thing in Danville, is a real-time crime center where we can feed in cameras from businesses, city cameras, put that information out to the greater department as it comes in. And we just have a room, we're plastered with, kind of like you see on TV, plastered with with screens that are showing areas, hotspot areas where crime is occurring, and then deploy those officers based off that real-time data. And we're going to get there, and we're going to get there in the next year. Things like ballistics IQ, NIBIN, the I-STAR team, all of that's going to work together to make us more effective at solving crime. I'm a huge believer in something called NIBIN. We've spoken about this a lot. And NIBIN is a ballistics imaging. So if you go to a scene, someone's been shot, either fatally or non-fatally, and you have those shell casings, we can use NIBIN, we can use ballistics IQ to match that up to the shell casings that are in our system. And the nature of violence being the way it is, usually there's connectivity there, right? So I said a small number of folks are out there committing violent crime. If I identify that early on, I can arrest and incapacitate that offender, and we can stop them from harming others. We also need to use technology to increase our trust and legitimacy. Get the information out. There's a lot of good stuff that Roanoke police officers are doing every day. We've got to continue to refine that and get that out. Our less lethal technologies. Everybody heard of tasers before? Tasers are? Well, in Roanoke, we don't have enough tasers. We have a couple of tasers pretty much per shift that's working. In Danville, all officers had a taser. Certainly not a huge fan of any type of use of force, but if an officer doesn't have a taser, if an officer doesn't have an intermediate level of force that she or he can use, they are more likely to use deadly force. So I need to give them something that allows them to have an alternative to that. We embrace community policing and understand that true crime reduction can only occur with the community's help. One of the ways we're going to do that with community policing and crime reduction, a gap that we have right now, and this is something that I probably would not be standing up here as your chief of police today if I hadn't experienced that. We have to have a level of geographic accountability for our police supervisors. And I call that neighborhood-oriented policing. And that's where we divide our districts into sectors, and I assign in mid-level management, or in policing, that's a lieutenant, northwest, northeast, southwest, southeast, to really manage police responses and resources in that area. That gives neighborhoods, communities, somebody else besides, hey, the chief is working downtown at headquarters. You know, I see him at a community forum once every quarter, but who do I call on a regular basis when I've got issues in my community? And I did that as one of 12 in the city of Richmond as a youngish lieutenant with 30 officers. And that really helped shape how I look at policing. And we're going to do that here. We're going to do that here in the next few months. We also have to become more intelligence and data driven. So we've got the tools. And I knew that when I was coming in the door, we have all the tools. It's just not running exactly the way we need to do it. But stratified policing, which is a business accountability model, is going to work with our neighborhood-oriented policing, and that's going to get us there. That's going to make sure that every officer, from that line officer in a patrol car to that detective, all the way up to me, is responsible for crime reduction and community engagement in our community. And we're going to do other things like revitalize our neighborhood watch programs and community groups. And we're going to invest in our city's most valuable resources. It's youth. One of the first things that I did as the new chief of Danville, Virginia, is I created a youth engagement officer. Because if you don't start building that trust and legitimacy when folks are young, you're never going to get it. So we started doing youth police academies. We started doing Reach One mentoring programs. And that was our kickoff of our community policing model there in 2018. We'll do the same thing right here in the city of Roanoke. And then training and education. We must be a learning organization. We can't just be stuck in how we did things in the 90s and 2000s. And policing is a fascinating entity as far as a profession. But sometimes I'm amazed by folks that will tell me, hey, well, this is what worked. You know, in Richmond in 1996, this is what worked. I'm like, man, that's when we were having more gun violence, more homicides than ever. How is that working? You know, we need to evolve. We got to get better. But sometimes folks stay tied to old things that just don't work. So we're going to become more community focused and problem solving oriented. We're going to make sure that our agency is once again a learning organization. One of the things that I did as a chief in Danville is I recognized in 2020 that there was a gap in our training. Officers would go to the police academies for, thank you, Mr. President. Officers would go to the police academy for 20 weeks. And then they would come out and do on the job or field training for 10 weeks, but they had no community-based training. So we created something called the Community Leadership Immersion Program, which was 4 weeks that all of our new officers were exposed to community voices. All right, they could go to every neighborhood in the city of Danville and they could hear how that community wanted to be policed. All right, so they could understand. A lot of folks that are on our police department are not from Roanoke, okay? I need them to understand the neighborhoods and the needs and wants of those folks. I'm running out of time here. Something else I believe in, tremendously is de-escalation training. So in conjunction with things like tasers and expanding that use, officers have to have other tools so they can avoid the use of force. Communication is always key. Use of cover, creating distance. All of our officers are getting ready to go through our PERS ICAT model of de-escalation that will make us better. And I'm running out of time and I want you to ask some questions. So I'm going to kind of skip to the end. I will say this, officer wellness and safety is something that was neglected for way too long in police organizations. This is very important to me. We have to help our officers get better. We have to help them build and maintain their mental health. And every officer should have a mentor. So that's what we're working on right now, that when you're in the academy, you get assigned a mentor, and that mentor stays with you throughout your career. So in closing, before I open it up to questions, I want the Roanoke Police Department to be a part of the diverse community that we serve. We're going to hold ourselves and the community accountable in everything that we do. We are a focused, transparent organization that effectively uses data and communicates with our community to solve problems. We embrace community policing and understand that we can only reduce crime with the community's help. We are highly trained and open to emerging concepts in public safety, and we take care of ourselves and the community by focusing on officer safety and well-being. So that's a wrap on the presentation. I have 2 minutes and 30 seconds left to take any of your questions. Gentlemen, I got no, they hit their hands up. Gentlemen. I certainly don't, but I'll tell you, they're very low. And that's, you know, I like real data, but that's usually very low. Most of the shootings that occur, and certainly any city that I've worked in Virginia, those folks are usually illegally carrying those firearms. All right, that's usually illegal carry. Yes, sir. So I'm being told I got to repeat that. So what you're saying is you want to see how we can develop programs between the city's athletic department and the police department. Captain Jennifer Boswell, that's who you need to contact. You with me? So what we're going to do, and I'll talk to you sidebar, we're going to develop some positions that can work with you on furthering that. Okay. I'm sorry. I'll come back to you, sir. Sir.
How many officers are currently in our Roanoke City Police Department? How many would you want?
Well, you know, we're authorized theoretically 267. That includes overhire positions. A more accurate authorization would be 250. And we're probably about 40 positions down. So that puts us at about 210. I would love to get back to fully staffed and then eventually increase that amount. So the question I'm being told, Bill whisper in my ear here, is that I've got to restate the question. So you asked what was our staffing level for the police department. All right, sir.
Chief Booth, I want to thank you. I had the pleasure of listening to you talk yesterday at the bar meeting, and I'm tremendously impressed with how you were able to tailor your message to your audience. Because, even though what you have said is essentially the same, you're the same person.
Well, thank you. Well, you were all attorneys in there, and I was soaking wet because I had to walk through the rain to get there. So I probably had more edge that day. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
The question is, one of the things that proactive efforts to your education, institutions like churches, schools, etc. How they.
So the question was, what are we doing as a police department, as a community to address active shooting? So number one, education. We have the Community Response Bureau that actively works with different entities to ensure they're educated. And the other is training. All right, we've had mass training, and we're going to have another couple this year where officers respond to a scenario like a school-based active shooter scenario so they can appropriately handle that. And one thing that we saw, and I know I'm being pushed off here, is if you remember at the Drumstick Dash, there was a hoax call that came into the Hotel Roanoke of an active shooter. So officers at 8 a.m. that morning were able to respond to that because at the time we did not know it was a hoax. And what I saw was very effective communication as those officers work with stakeholders to clear, we call it clear, the Hotel Roanoke. So I've kind of seen them in action, and that you have to have that real world training. I'm being pushed off, but thanks. Yeah, yeah, thanks.
Chief Booth, we have a small token of our appreciation. You've designated Straight Street. You're the recipient of that. We were delighted to have you here today.
Thank you,
More applause, please.
Thank you.
So seated in our audience today, who was introduced as a guest, is Vice Mayor Joe Cobb. Joe is going to be here next week at the podium delivering one heck of a presentation.
Yeah.
Looking forward to it. Thank you all for coming. Thank you, Bill.